I used to work as a mover in the Portland, Oregon area for around 15 years. It was a small company, and I was a top supervisor. In the summer of 1993, an old woman had passed away in her house on the edge of a quiet neighborhood just outside of Portland. She had no family members whatsoever who stepped forward to claim her belongings. The bank eventually had to hire our moving company to clear everything out and put it into a storage unit until an auction could be arranged. We spent 2 full days boxing up dusty furniture, stacks of National Geographic, porcelain figurines, and clothes that smelled like mothballs. In the back room, on a shelf beside a cracked mirror, sat a doll. It wasn't like the others. It was 2 feet tall, with a jointed wooden body like some kind of nightmarish marionette. It had messy blonde hair that hung over its face. Its eyes were enormous, round, bulging irises that seemed to stare right at me. The mouth was a toothy grin. It wore a faded blue shirt under purple overalls and scuffed gray boots. Something about the way it sat there, perfectly upright, head tilted just slightly, made my fucking skin crawl. I almost left it there, but my boss told me to pack everything up, so I did. I made sure to put extra tape on the box and carried it to the truck. 2 days later, I was driving home from another long shift when I glanced in the rearview mirror. I shit you not, somehow, there it was. The fucking doll was sitting upright in the back seat, staring straight at me through the gap between the headrests. I nearly swerved off the road. I pulled over, heart pounding, and threw the thing into the nearest dumpster behind a grocery store. I figured my boss, who is also my best friend, pulled a prank on me. When I saw him the next day, I said, "Good one, Chuck, putting that fucking thing in my car." He gave me a confused look. "I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't even here yesterday." I thought about it, and he was right. He was out of town the day before. He couldn't have put it in my car. I said it must have been a mistake, and it probably was my nephew. But I never told him what exactly was left in my car. That night, I had one of the worst nightmares of my life. In the dream, I was running through endless dark hallways in what looked like the old woman's house. The soft click of wooden joints was coming from behind me. I turned. I saw that doll. At first it was small, but as I got closer, it became bigger, taller. Its wooden limbs lengthened with an audible cracking sound, joints splintering and reforming. The painted yellowish-orange face split into a wider grin, teeth sharpening into jagged points. Those enormous eyes glowed with a sickly yellow light. By the end, it was towering over me. No longer a doll, but an abomination with claws, horns, and a tail. The moment I saw its true form, I jolted awake, drenched in sweat. I told myself it was just a stress getting the better of me, although I kept thinking back to how on earth that doll ended up in my back seat. 6 months later, the storage unit's contents went up for auction at a big commercial lot in the outskirts of Portland. I couldn't tell you why I went. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I had no reason to be there. But that Saturday morning, I found myself driving out anyway, like something was pulling me by a string. The auction was in full swing by the time I arrived. There was a lot more stuff there than just the old lady's assets. Tables and rows of items stretched across the gravel. I just sort of wandered through, not really seeing anything I could use. When I got near the back, I looked up and about had a heart attack right there on the spot when I saw the doll sitting there. Same messy blonde hair, same bulging eyes, same jagged, toothy grin. It was positioned upright among some old lamps and books, as if it had been waiting for me. My stomach twisted violently, bile rising in my throat. I pushed my way back through the crowd toward the exit. I remember glancing back one last time, and I swear that doll's head had turned to look directly at me. I drove away fast. The further I got from that lot, the better I felt. The nausea vanished. My breathing eased. By the time I reached the highway, it was like I was waking from a dream. It's been over 30 years. I've thought about this experience a lot. In 1993, the internet was around, but we didn't have anything like Reddit or widely known forums to discuss paranormal activity. I don't have any real evidence for my conclusion. Just a hunch. That thing wasn't just a creepy antique. It was a vessel for a demonic entity. When we cleared everything out, it hitched a ride with the only living thing it could find. Me. I threw it away, but it somehow found a way out. I know that old woman's belongings were at that auction, but there was a lot of other stuff being sold off there as well. It could have wound up there a number of ways. If my theory is correct, I don't know why it didn't pursue me further. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for that. But I think it may have found someone else to latch onto. Some poor soul who bought it and invited it into their home. I was 17 in the summer of 2011, just another kid scraping by in San Francisco with my mom in a small house in the Sunset District. My dad had been gone for about 6 years at this point. After he divorced my mom, he moved to Japan for some tech job. So our relationship was mostly reduced to awkward birthday cards and the occasional email. So when a package arrived from Tokyo a week after my birthday, I wasn't that surprised. Inside was a bokken, a wooden sword. The note was short. "Happy birthday, Jake. Thought you might like this." It smelled faintly of incense and old paper. I thought it was pretty cool. I hung it on my bedroom wall above my desk with a couple of nails, right next to my anime posters. My dad knew I was into anime, which is probably why he sent this to me. A couple of days later, dead birds began showing up in our backyard. Sparrows mostly, sometimes a pigeon. There was never any blood, no obvious injuries. They just looked like they had dropped straight out of the sky right over our house. My mom would cross herself every time she saw one. She had been going to church more often that summer, and she would come home looking pale and exhausted. At first I figured it was the heat, or maybe she was coming down with something, but it got worse as time went on. She would nap for hours after attending services, and when she woke up, she would complain about pressure behind her eyes. I started noticing it too. Every time I came home from school, the second I stepped through the front door, it hit me. An oppressive weight. Like the air was thicker inside the house. My temples would throb, and I would feel this low buzz in my skull. Almost a headache, but not quite. I would shake it off, blame it on schoolwork and too much time on the computer, but deep down, I knew something wasn't quite right. One Friday evening, I went to the movies with some friends. I got home late that night. It was maybe a little after midnight. I parked in the driveway and stepped out of my car. I happened to glance up at my bedroom window. There was something standing inside. It was a dark shape, very tall, hunched like it was too big for the room. I could feel it looking back at me. My stomach dropped. I stood there frozen in fear, heart hammering inside my chest, until the thing shifted and disappeared from view. I didn't go back inside right away. I sat on the front steps for about 20 minutes. telling myself I imagined the whole thing. Then, suddenly, everything clicked for me. The birds, Mom not feeling well, the headaches. This all started when the package arrived at our house. The Boken. I went inside, took that thing off the wall, drove 6 blocks to the dumpsters behind an apartment complex, and chucked it in, then drove away. It was like someone had taken a backpack full of bricks off my shoulders. The next morning there were no dead birds. Mom seemed to be feeling well, and when I walked through the front door after school, the house felt completely normal. The dreadful pressure was gone. A couple of months later, I finally told my dad on the phone. I picked it up at a little gift shop in Asakusa. The guy selling it didn't say anything weird, but if it was doing all that, maybe you did the right thing by tossing it. He seemed a little disappointed that I had thrown his gift out, but he didn't dismiss my story outright. He knows better than anyone about Japanese folklore. Yokai, cursed objects, things that carry grudges or attract evil spirits. I'll never know the full story behind that wooden sword, but I know I did the right thing by tossing it out. My father grew up in Buenos Aires, Argentina. In 2008, when my mom was pregnant with me, he relocated his family to the United States. Before leaving Argentina, he was working for a pest control service. One morning in the year 2006, they sent him out alone to fumigate an abandoned property about 10 miles north of the city. The job was straightforward: spray the place from top to bottom, and set out traps if he observed any rodent activity. He thought it was strange they were bothering with this old empty house, but a job was a job. What struck him about this place was that it had a basement. Basements aren't common in Argentina at all. Most houses just don't have them. But this one did for some reason. He went down the narrow concrete stairs, carrying his equipment and flashlight. It was the usual mess: broken furniture, old papers, rat droppings. But in the far corner, half hidden behind some wooden crates, stood something very odd. He described it as a pyramid-shaped stand, maybe 3 feet high, made of wood and metal. It looked ancient. He had no idea what it was, and figured it was some kind of weird art sculpture or a forgotten piece of furniture, and didn't think much more of it beyond that. He worked his way through the basement, spraying every crack and corner. Setting traps when he was finished, he started back toward the stairs. That's when he heard it: a man screaming. Not distant, not muffled. Right there in the room with him. The sound of pure agony. My father spun around. What he saw in the flashlight beam has haunted him ever since. There was a naked man, thin and pale, sitting directly on top of the pyramid stand. His full weight was pressing down on the sharp point, with blood running down the sides of the wood. The man's face was twisted in unbearable pain, mouth wide open, screaming without pause. His eyes looked straight at my father, desperate, pleading. For a second, my dad froze in place. But when he finally took a step toward the man, the figure vanished. In one moment there was a screaming, bleeding man. The next, only the empty stand in the corner. The basement fell, dead silent. My father ran up the stairs, out of the house, and didn't stop till he was back in his truck, tearing down the road. He called his boss from the nearest payphone and said the place was done, and he never went back there again. For years, he had no idea what he had seen. He wasn't the type to believe in ghosts or anything paranormal. He even thought that maybe the chemicals had caused some kind of hallucination. He also never thought about looking up that strange, pyramid-shaped object. I did. And what he saw makes perfect sense. The device is called the Judas Cradle. It was a medieval torture device. Victims were strapped, suspended above it, and slowly lowered. Their own body weight did the rest. It could go on for hours, sometimes days. There's no historical record of the Judas Cradle being used in Argentina, even during the dictatorship years. My guess is the house once belonged to a collector who brought it over. Maybe it was even used in secret in that house. We'll never know for sure. My father did eventually find out that the abandoned house had been purchased by a private company a few weeks before he was sent there. They wanted it fumigated because they were turning it into a bed and breakfast for tourists, a little weekend getaway spot outside of Buenos Aires. I have no way of knowing if it ever actually became a bed and breakfast, but if anybody else heard or saw that screaming man in the basement, it wouldn't have been long before that house was abandoned again or demolished.
There's always a reason to be afraid.